Watch this. It's been dominating the headlines, but Omicron has yet to become the dominant COVID strain in Idaho. It is increasing, though, and that variant of concern could soon become very concerning in the Gem State. Folks way up in Atlanta, Idaho, they're used to sporadic mail service this time of year, but to have it cut off this close to Christmas, that's a bridge and a road too far for even them. Another day of remembering what got our attention on the 208 in 2021. Tonight, we're taking a look back at what caught Katija's eye with her favorite stories of the year. It went from variant of concern in South Africa on November 26th to detected in California on December 1st to now 73% of cases across the country are from the Omicron strain of the coronavirus. It was just 13% the week before. So yeah, we are in a surge when it comes to COVID-19, except maybe here in Idaho. We've had a 14-day average of 350 COVID cases a day, down from 1,300 back in October. Remember that peak? A 17% positivity rate back in September to most recently just 6.5%. And only 2 of those cases have been attributed to Omicron, according to the Department of Health and Welfare. That second one coming through just today. Just 2 with just 15 suspected samples at the state lab. Is that even possible, though? We talked about this yesterday a bit. Not testing enough or just a fluke was the question Lisa asked. And the answer is yes and no. Testing has dropped by a bunch. We've gone from 50,000 tests a week during our September peak to 26,000 just a couple of weeks ago. And even with a 6.5% positivity rate and 350 cases a day, there's got to be several Omicron cases in there, right? Just kind of mixed in, a lot more than just 2, but we still only have 2 confirmed cases. Health and Welfare explains it like this. The process for genomic testing, this DNA sequencing you've heard about when it comes to tracking COVID variants, starts with a positive PCR test, not a rapid test. I'm talking about that long swab that goes up the nose, that sample. And even then, you have to have enough of a sample to get a DNA sequence of the virus. Then that gets sent out of state to be tested, and that could take, up to about 10 days to get an answer. So we're still waiting for an update on that Omicron, or more cases, with those 15 suspected samples out there, and that's expected to come through soon. But there's another way to know how prevalent and increasing Omicron is in Idaho right now. Like the Alpha variant before, Omicron has a certain mutation that is detectable without having it to be sequenced. Remember those gene dropouts? It's a reference we kind of heard in the early days of the pandemic. Well, Omicron has that same detection pattern. This is from the FDA website, this whole paragraph that explains it. It was updated today. And it's a lot of words to say Omicron has a dropout gene marker that indicates the presence of the variant. And local testing sites, like with Primary Health, are seeing that marker pop up more and more.
In fact, our identification of those patients with that marker, which we're waiting for typing, but I'm 99.9% sure it's Omicron, is doubling. That is, the number of patients we're identifying, frankly, on a daily basis continues to increase at a very, very rapid rate.
For example, Dr. Peterman told us their Sunday to Monday rate versus their Monday to Tuesday rate for positive tests with that marker went from 10% to 20%. And that's just with Primary Health, and there are a whole lot of other testers out there. So for sure, there's more Omicron in Idaho than just 2 confirmed cases and a dozen suspected samples. And if there's a bright spot, though, Omicron seems to have peaked in South Africa, where it was first detected just weeks ago, kind of on the downturn, a little bit, as for now. But as for how severe this new variant seems to be, that's still to be determined, and too soon to know for sure. The kids call it a subtweet when you refer to a person on social media without directly mentioning them by name. And usually it happens on Twitter. But the Bingham County Sheriff Chief Deputy happened to do it on Facebook Monday night. About a week ago, Bingham County Sheriff Craig Rowland made national headlines for something that happened back in November. Sheriff Rowland has been charged with aggravated assault, aggravated battery, and exhibition of a deadly weapon for allegedly threatening members of a church youth group. They happened to be leaving notes, thank you notes, on neighbors' doors. And they left one on Sheriff Rowland's house, and then he ran away. And that's kind of how it works. You leave it and you leave. Well, the Idaho Attorney General's office says Rowland chased them down, pulled the driver out of the car by her hair, put a gun to her head, and threatened her. During his interview with investigators, Rowland said he, quote, was on edge that night. He also added it was because of past experiences with, quote, drunk Indians from the nearby Fort Hall reservation. And, quote, we have a lot of reservation people around us who are not good people, end quote. The mayor and police department in the city of Blackfoot have all called for Rowland's resignation. And then Monday, Bingham County Chief Deputy Jeff Gardner posted a statement on Facebook that said, well, saying the men and women of Bingham County Sheriff's Office remain dedicated to providing the public safety services the people of this county need and depend on. They also talked about how important their relationship is with the Shoshone-Bannock Tribal Council and the Fort Hall Police Department. The statement, however, does not mention Rowland by name, worth noting. Kind of like tell me you're distancing yourself from the Bingham County Sheriff without actually distancing yourself from the Bingham County Sheriff. Sheriff Rowland did take a leave of absence for 2 weeks as the state investigated this case, but he is currently back in the office. He was supposed to make his first virtual court appearance this morning, but it was postponed until next Wednesday because his lawyer said he wanted to move the hearing off Zoom and into the actual courtroom. Want a guarantee of a white Christmas in Idaho? Just head to the mountains, where the snow has been piling up for weeks now. That snow, though, makes it tough to get in and out on those dirt roads, adding to the inconvenience of access to civilization, which is a lot of why those locales are desirable. But completely cut off can't be good, especially this time of year. So when we got this text message yesterday, we had to find out more about it. Pam gave us a news tip. Atlanta, Idaho, she said, is without mail service this holiday season. The main mailman broke his leg, and the people living up there full-time depend on the mail for meds and for checks and items to be delivered. And we thought this could be a big deal, and it is. First, some background. Atlanta, Idaho is in the mountains of the Boise National Forest, about 5,400 feet up, just 132 miles away from Boise, but a lot of it is over rarely maintained Forest Service road, and on a good day, it would take you nearly 3.5 hours to get there from Boise. This time of year, though, with snowstorms and icy roads, it could be closer to a 4-hour trip. In Atlanta, in winter, mail service drops from 6 days a week to just 3 because of that access, and during heavy snow season, they have gone weeks without getting mail before. But right before Christmas, and for a weather-unrelated reason, well, here's what happened. John Danielson has been the main mail carrier to Atlanta for the past 10 years. He's 72 years old, and those that live there say he's done a lot more for them than just drop off the mail. But earlier this month, while delivering that mail, John slipped on some ice and he broke his hip. He's now at a Boise hospital recovering and rehabbing after surgery. His wife, Judy, told us they were able to hire a substitute mail carrier, but they couldn't afford to do it forever, which is why Atlanta, and there's about 40 to 50 people up there right now, and we're told it grows to more than 100 during the Christmas season. Well, they've only had mail delivered twice in the last 3 weeks. The last time, about 10 days ago. So today, Alan Lake and Lenny Sue Hale from Atlanta were in Boise to ask about bringing the mail back to their fellow Atlantans. But those in charge at the Overland Station Post Office, which is the last stop for Atlanta's mail before, well, Atlanta, told them they couldn't do it. As you can understand, they can't just give someone's mail to someone else. But it gets worse. The reason Atlanta hasn't had any mail delivery this week is because the U.S. Postal Service canceled the delivery contract.
Last Friday.
A week before Christmas.
Yes.
Yes. And now we can't, we're here now and can't pick up their mail for them.
And they're expecting stuff for Christmas.
Oh,
They are.
yeah.
All the kids, the presents and cards, and yes, we'd like our mail.
And there's no way to resolve this?
So the answer is if we can't carry the mail, then the mail service should carry the mail. But if they don't have anyone available to do that. I don't know what we'll tell people when we get back home. We'll tell them that we were not able to pick up their mail and that the Postal Service didn't know when they could deliver.
So there's a chance Christmas delivery won't happen in Atlanta before Christmas.
I think there's a
Oh, I'm sure it won't.
very
before
nearly
Christmas.
100% chance that it won't.
And who knows how late after Christmas. So
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Well, the post office should, but the folks at the Overland Station weren't able to tell Alan and Lenny what's happening with their mail delivery just yet. They did give them a number to call, a phone number. And they gave us a number as well because we asked the same question, just how much mail was there to be delivered that hasn't, and when could it be expected to be delivered? But we have yet to hear back from the Boise postmaster. We were told there were at least 2 people interested in taking over that contract to deliver mail to Atlanta. But for now, if you live in Atlanta, and you want your mail, your meds, your Christmas cards and packages, you have to come to Boise to get it.
Minutes away.
All right, every once in a while, we throw a graphic up on the screen and show you all the ways you can connect with us on the 208. Other than through text messages, of course, at 208-321-5614. Don't forget your name and the hashtag the 208. All right, one of those other places is on Facebook, and it's where the 208 conversation continues even after the show. We like to keep an eye on those exchanges as well, for the obvious terms of service violations, but also because it lets us know what people are talking about. And a popular conversation in the 208 group this week, jury duty. A lot of you shared stories about jury duty in Idaho, other than how to get out of it. And others raised some good questions about the process. Well, Joe Paris took your questions to the people in charge of jury duty in Ada County to get them answered.
In the 208 Facebook group, Olivia asked a great question about jury duty in Idaho. She writes, "How do they decide who gets called for jury duty? I'm in my late 20s and have now been called for jury duty 3 times in 4 years. Yet plenty of older people than me have never been called. Why?" Well, it's a great question. And I went to Ada County Administrative District Court Judge Stephen Hippler and Ada County Jury Commissioner Randy Rutland for details. So Randy, for starters, how is the pool of jurors created?
So they are selected either through their voter's registration or state ID or driver's license.
And how's the process done? Is it completely random?
It's a completely random process. Everybody's name goes into that jury pool that's over the age of 18 and a resident of Ada County that has that voter's registration or ID, and then it's completely random after that.
So, Olivia, it's just your luck being selected 3 times in 4 years. However, did you know that after serving on a jury, you do earn the right for a limited time to say no thanks to a new jury summons?
You can get another summons year after year. However, on our qualification questionnaire, there is a spot there that you can basically excuse yourself by marking that you've been summoned and served within the last 36 months, and you have that option to opt out. Now, some citizens prefer not to. They'll serve as many times as they can. But you do have that option for 36 months from the last time that you were summoned and served, that you may opt out of it.
Like so many other things in our community, COVID has complicated jury trials. Idaho courts saw pauses on jury trials over the last few years because of COVID precautions. That's created a backlog, and Judge Stephen Hippler explains more.
In a typical year, we would try in the neighborhood of 350 to 500 jury trials in Ada County alone. And I think in 2020, we tried, I think about 100 jury trials. So that tells you that backlog.
Judge Hippler says it will take some time to work through it all.
You know, every time we have one of these periods where we can't have trials, it then just sort of starts to stack up everything again. And so we anticipate that we'll be digging out of this in one way or the other, probably through at least 2025.
Ooh, that's a big statement. That's
Yeah.
a long backlog that
There's a lot of work they have to get through, Brian, and they have all the jury trials, and then they also have all the civil jury trials, and again, they keep pausing everything at the courthouses around Idaho because of COVID, and there are just some things you cannot do when you're not in person, like have a jury trial, for example. So they're going to work through that. Judge Hippler tells me, you control what you can control, but yeah, through 2025 is his estimate on to get through all the backlog that's been building since March of 2020.
All right, very quickly, you talked about how you can opt out. What if you really want to be in or on a jury? Is there a way to do that?
It's great that you want to be an overachieving citizen, Brian,
Yep.
but it's all random, so sorry,
All right.
you get selected or not.
That's all it is. All right, thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Ooh, a reminder, it's going to be cold next week. And a reminder, all this week, we are sharing some of our favorite stories from the last year here on the 2-8. Some may not have been the biggest headlines, but they did make a big impact on us and possibly you. Tonight, Katija Stepovic shares her 2021 year in review.
The year was full of highs and lows, goods, bads, deaths, and births. But it started off in, well, the pandemic. And by summer, there were so many deaths that some Idaho funeral homes started to run low on space for their bodies.
This truck is about 8.5 or 9 feet wide. It's lined on both sides with racks that are 3 high. There's room for an additional approximate 10 if we use additional tables or something of that nature. One came available and we brought it up about 2 weeks ago now and got it ready and it was needed immediately. In 47 years, I've never experienced anything like this. If we see that trailer fill up, I think that we're gonna see a lot of other things change around the area.
Idaho hit its peak number of hospitalizations from COVID on September 24th at 793 Idahoans fighting for their lives. The number of deaths also made headlines on September 26th at 33 deaths reported in just one single day. Among the many who passed was the beloved Garden Valley Fire Chief John Duval, who took on the role for over 21 years. He died from complications of COVID-19.
It's really devastated us all. How do you put in words someone like John?
I talked to him on the phone, and he was in just the ER at that point, and I talked to him over the phone, and in true fashion, he was delegating tasks and making sure that we were carrying on without him. And that was the last I spoke to him.
I asked him, I said, John, when do you plan to retire? And he said, in 3 years. I'm going to work for 3 more years and then I'm going to retire. It was very, very, very hard. Yeah, he's going to be really missed, that's for sure.
And by that time, some people who chose not to get vaccinated in the beginning started to think twice. Take Kay Craig, who's been working in the medical field for more than 28 years at St. Luke's, for example. She filed a religious exemption to not get vaccinated, and not long after that, decided to retract that exemption and get vaccinated.
I was kind of skeptical. I didn't want to wear the mask, and I didn't want to wear or get vaccinated. Not in the society's face. But if we had an open window to what our doctors and nurses are going through down there, anything is even said at church, even if it comes from the pulpit, you got to still have a personal relationship with Jesus. You got to read it for yourself. Yeah, they went to school for that, but they're human too. Doctors are human, and everybody's human, and so do your own research and believe it for yourself and have faith for yourself.
And if you think the pandemic has run long, how about the lifespan and travels of a book that was checked out over a century ago, only to be checked into the Boise Library 110 years late?
November 8th of 1911, I think, was its last due date. The checkout desk downstairs noticed that it was rather old and it didn't have any current markings, so they looked into it. I don't think anybody here has seen a book checked in 100 years later.
At more than 40,000 days late, if the library still had the same late fee policy, whoever checked it out would owe more than $800. This year also forced people to get outdoors, setting some pretty lofty goals. This one might put some of us adults to shame.
In June 26th was when I summited my first peak, Hyman Peak.
I want to know why you decided to hike all the 12ers in Idaho.
I decided this because, well, I have 2 friends. They were 8 and 6 when they did all the 12ers. They're the 2 youngest to do all of them, and they inspired me when I was 7 years old. There were some points when Mom got really nervous.
That's because it's hard sometimes to watch a 9-year-old boy out on a knife-edge ridge.
Yeah.
But I was confident, and you were confident, and we were also cautious. We never did anything that we thought was too dangerous.
9-year-old Camden Patry's next goal, Mount Everest.
Sometimes it's hard to have a 9-year-old keep their shoes tied, and they're doing that. That's impressive.
I know. After I did that story, I was like, okay, first step, the gym, so I can get, my energy level.
Work up to it. Now, you couldn't put everything that you wanted to in that story. Something you wanted to, or you left out.
Yeah, and it was a big part of my experience this past year. I covered it, from the moment we got there at 2 in the afternoon. Of course, the Boise Town Square Mall shooting that killed 2 and injured several. And while it was the community mourned and people lost their lives and it was absolutely tragic, I want to share some numbers with our viewers. 26-year-old Jo Acker, she was the security guard who was shot and killed doing her job. I looked at their GoFundMe just before the show. They raised over $50,000 to their family. So the community people who didn't even know her or her family just wanted to give back. And then 49-year-old Roberto Arguelles, he was also shot and killed just shopping. They actually raised money to his family, $56,000 from the public, to have his body actually taken to Mexico to be back with his family once again. So I think, you know, we look at these things and these are tragic events that, you know, tear apart the community, but in ways, you know, they can bring them together. And I think that's kind of what we saw with this shooting.
It definitely shows the spirit of this community, this state, when those events happen like that. Absolutely. Thanks, Katija. All right, a couple moments here to get to your comments that you sent in during the show. One of them sent in, let's get to this one here. Let's talk about Alan Lake, how he's an honorable man. In 2000, he was working at a fire up there. I skipped through it. Let's do this one again. Anyway, Alan Lake is a good guy, and he's working on a problem to get the Atlanta mail service back and running. Why can't the USPS hire a helicopter, place a certified postal worker on board with the Atlanta mail and get it up there? What's so hard about that? Asked Steve from Meridian. We were told today they just didn't have anybody to spare. So even if that was possible, they can't. But Rob tell us it's a contract thing and they really can't. I mean, if we can drop beavers, right, out of airplanes, why can't we just drop mail in Atlanta? It's a good question.